Hi, hey everybody, it's Into Red Room, and we are here with December's Menses reading. So, I'd like to thank you for all of the support from the last video, the two people, and the comments and stuff like that. So, this is going to be December's reading. If you don't know, this is a reading about menstruation. It's not meant to specifically talk about the cycle, but it is meant to talk about cycles that you're having, and it's just happened to be represented by the menstrual cycle with 4 parts: the follicular, ovulatory, luteal, and then the menstruation phases. In each phase, the body goes through certain changes, certain hormone level changes, certain emotional states. When you start to track your menstrual cycle, you notice certain things about yourself and how you shift. Another way to talk about your menstruation is your lunar cycle. A lot of people talk about that because essentially a menstruation cycle, your menses, kind of lines up with the lunar cycle, as in the length of it is pretty much aligned, give or take a few days, but pretty much it aligns. So that's kind of the theme and the reasoning behind this reading. So we're gonna go ahead and use these decks. I have Kim Cran's Archetype decks. I have the Mother Peace Tarot, which was featured in the last one. And then I have the Uncommon Tarot, which is going to bring some ancestral insights, because I kind of feel like that needs to have, some say. I don't feel like I used this the last time. Anyway, let's start with the overall theme of this. And for some people, you're having multiple sexual partners between your ovulatory phase and your menstruation phase. Your theme is the underworld. So your follicular is the 6 of Cups. Your ovulatory is Ace of Discs and the World. 3 of Wands for your luteal, and then your menstruation is 7 of Swords, which is something, and the Emperor. So immediately right off the bat, some of you have gone back to someone, and the result may be an STD, STI. It's someone from the past, someone you may have had a new beginning with, as far as like you ended the relationship and then like you started it back up. Now there may have been some sort of promise of like money or dates and stuff like that. It could be like this person is a workaholic and like they promise to kind of like clean that shit up, and then you're like, yeah, we can do this because like it could also be that this relationship has been established for a really long time, and I'm gonna say it, if you're scared because it's been established for a really long time, like maybe like work through that, because it's a very good thing on the surface, but underneath is kind of where we're getting in trouble here. So we have the 3 of Wands, the Emperor, and the 7 of Swords. So whenever I get wands cards specifically, I always think of STIs or some sort of hormonal imbalance down there. So like a yeast infection or BV or something like that. So take care with that. Make sure that you are using adequate protection. Make sure that you know, particularly if you want a monogamous relationship or monogamous like interactions, this person isn't with multiple people. And energetically, someone from their past, it's almost like you know both of these people, but you don't know that they know each other. Like, your connection may be established, but their connection, the second connection, is like longer, but then somehow you know both of them. They're also, because I'm looking at this dark figure right here, if you are in a relationship, you may feel like there's a presence there that you don't know about, or there's something that you sense is still there. Like, it could be like it could be a relationship that you sense is still there, or something that's occupying this person's mind, or something that like you guys aren't talking about, something buried beneath the surface when it comes to like what you want or the relationship you want. For some people, you may want to establish your like, not your like body count or anything like that as far as like sexual partners, but you just may want to establish what your like actual history is with relationships, and be really honest about that, because there's something here that throws your body off balance through repeating a cycle. And with that Six of Cups there, repeating a cycle based on the idea that everything is okay, as opposed to like actually talking and releasing it. And like, so okay, so I'm currently reading Astrology for the Soul, and it's a North Notebook, and my North Node is in Sag, and a lot of that section talks about making sure that you're honest and open and vulnerable, and you're telling the truth, and telling your truth corrects a lot of things, and it stops a lot of things in its tracks before it starts. And that's the advice I have for you, particularly if you have a pattern with that Six of Cups of these issues. So if you have relationships where you're not open and honest about what you need, what you want, even the fact, like, even a lot of people don't even, today, they don't even tell others that they're like seeing multiple people, like something like that, just that honesty, like, it's best, because of this Seven of Swords and this Emperor, to not work with assumptions, like, and not have your guard up with that underworld, like this idea that everyone's like out to play you, or everyone's just not telling the truth. With that Seven of Swords, I feel like there needs to be like more truth told, and that'll work in your favor, and that'll help you, establish a really, with the Emperor, like a stronger relationship, or stronger potential for relationships. So if you have like suitors, then like be open and honest. But it feels like it's somebody that you're currently like already talking to, that you need to be honest with, and need to have honest connection and communication with. So as far as your own bodily cycle, I feel like, as far as like the actual menstrual, if we're gonna go like medical, well, not medical because I'm not a medical doctor, but if we're gonna go like physiological, Like, yes, you will menstruate, but this may be a harder menstruation. There may just be like some imbalancing that has to happen. I also feel like you will begin to release something from your past. It could be someone, but it's something. I feel like it's something regarding the ability to conceive an animalistic side of self that because with the Six of Cups, this is for everyone, including myself. We all in here. There is a bit of denial of the more base nature of self in favor of the highly spiritual. And so when it comes to your body, so I don't know if you're someone who has felt like they were born in the wrong body, or born into menstruation and you didn't really understand its concept and its purpose when it comes to like the form that you have, and that there is a sort of questioning of how powerful is this, because you may be one of those people that looks online and you see like the power of the bleed or the power of the menstrual, the power of this, and you perceive it more as a weakness, and more if you could like default, like opt out of that function, you would. But there's something in the underworld, your concept of like even like maybe mortality, or almost like menstruating is carrying on the cycles of your family in some way. Like each time you go through a cycle, you feel like you're completing some sort of ancestral karma, or like you're fulfilling ancestral karma. It's almost like menstruation is tied to like karma in a negative sense. And so I don't know if that means like you don't want to be a woman, you don't want to be a menstruator, you don't want to do that, and that there may be some, not necessarily confusion about like the body, but some sort of confusion about the function of it all. And like there could just be a question deep inside of you of why, like why. It could even be as simple as like you feel, and this is like pushing up on topics of like I guess feminism or femininity, and like the physiological limits of like being a like female adult, that you're pushing up against like certain weaknesses that you perceive the female form to have, and those weaknesses bring a lot of imbalance to your life, because you're trying to process how you can be strong. Just making sure, like how you can be strong with this emperor, and if you're menstruating, you don't feel with that Seven of Swords that you're strong enough, or you feel like the sense of strength that's being portrayed online is a false strength, because it's not associated with like actual physical might. It's something that your body naturally does, and yes, you have cramps and stuff like that, but compared to the outward show of strength, it is not necessarily recognized. You don't see it, and so you don't see its potential. You don't see the yin space, the underworld, as being strong, as being a driver, as being a place where you really can hash things out. You may associate that this time or this period with no pun intended, with like I said, weakness, or almost like a brutality. Like it's almost like you split into, like if you, okay, so the best way I can see it is like, if you know Stromae, there's a song where he plays the role of the man and the woman, and that's how I feel. It's like when this happens, you're forced to be fully in this like feminine female space, like bodily physiological space. But the other aspect, the more emperor aspect, the more young male masculine aspect of self comes out and almost brutalizes and belittles the other aspect that is menstruating, and sees it as a separate thing to get through, but not necessarily a part of self that is recognized as having any sort of strength. It is just merely something to pass through and merely something to experience, because, and it's like it's mandated that you have to, based on your biology. And so there's like a lot of discomfort with this. It's like it's good up until the part where like your body has to start shedding the like it's starting to shed the lining. So it's when your body moves from more estrogen to progesterone, and so the estrogen type really falls dramatically, and then you start to see the shift. You start to feel the shift. So, like environmentally, there could be, and I'm gonna see if it's gonna confirm itself on the Uncommon Tarot, but it's like the idea of putting away oneself when one menstruates is kind of weird to you. It's almost like there's a sacredness in being out and about, but there's no sacredness in rest, and there's no sacredness in the more yin physiological states. Like it just seems like it's getting in the way of what you really want to do, and for the purpose of living, you're just gonna like suffer through this little part, and then you're gonna get back to where you want to be here. Like this is just merely a phase that you need to get through, and as a result, like you kind of wish you could rush and hurry up the last parts, because doing that makes you feel in control. What ends up happening though is especially if you deplete yourself, you get out of balance. And so because even if you want to like quicken it, it seems like quickening it brings on a lot of imbalance, like a lot of physiological imbalance. Like my advice would be to work on being committed to all of the phases. And it seems like when you get to the luteal phase, there's a shift. You can also not consider other feminine females, women, as intelligent, like not on your level. But with that Seven of Swords, they have especially the ones that fully embrace the menstrual cycle, they have an intelligence that you don't. And they know something that you don't. And I think sometimes you may get angry at that sphere knowing things that you don't. And it's like asking someone and they answer your question, but it's in a way that you're gonna have to experience life to figure it out. And they're kind of looking at you and they have like a glint in their eye, and it's not like a arrogant glint. It's just kind of like you'll figure it out in your own time. And when you arrive at the ideas, then you'll kind of know. It's kind of like crone energy, looking at some aspect that is outside of maiden and mother. It's an aspect that rejects all of those other labels, but is meeting the crone in some way. This could be somebody who's like menopausing also, and they like never really accepted their cycle, and they're okay with it disappearing. It's almost like if they were to go menopausal, they would get more control over external aspects of themselves that they feel like is affected by their internal workings through menstruation. Their internal workings of menstruation affect their ability to outwardly project and outwardly move in the world. But that causes a lot of imbalance because there's not enough rest, there's not enough introspection, there's not enough, especially when if you're going from this to this, you probably are dehydrated and your pH is like way off. And yeah, so it could be hatred of self, because you exist in this way, because your physiological being does X, Y, and Z. There's a lot of hatred of self, because even this, you know, it could also be, because this is a guy with an exposed chest. You know, this could be also, it could be someone who was forced into early menopause, or forced into into something based on surgery, cancer. They were like forced to accept a different way of life, and it's almost like they never really processed their menstruation. They never fully processed that. They never processed physiological states of being, and they still haven't post whatever event this is. But it's like that event caused like a shock to the system that they're still processing. But it's coming off as like more anger, or more anger, distrust, mistrust, more than anything. And it's kind of coming as a challenge of God, a challenge of, I don't understand like how this could help me, why this didn't help me, kind of energy. It feels really like angry. And like I said, with that Wands card, I feel like that affects the pH, especially in your reproductive system. Let's get some cards. The uncommon tarot. Okay, we have Justice. You have the Six of Wands, which is good. I'm not going to take any of these because I just... And then we have the Ace of Swords. Justice, Wands. Okay, so Justice, Six of Wands, and the Ace of Swords. Just making sure. Oh, 23 minutes. God damn. Okay. I like looked and it was like 13 minutes. Like, what the fuck? So we have Justice, Six of Wands, Ace. Justice, Six of Wands, Ace of Swords. It seems like ever since you were a kid, you never understood why you got menstrual cycles. It's almost like this person asks why they get it. Why do you get this? And no one has really answered your question beyond like stating that physiologically this is what happens. Like, I don't know if you've been able to accept that this is what happens to a body that has your reproductive system and has your physiological responses. I don't feel like you fully ever accepted that. There may be an idea of like, I'm stronger than that, I'm better than that, I don't understand why my strength is always undone, unmasked, revealed in some way. I don't understand it because every other aspect of self is in control, and this is something I can't control. It's something I can't always balance out. I can't always figure out how to get the best result. Like, I haven't figured this out. This is somebody who, if you were to sit there and look at their aura, they would be out of line. Like, they would be, their body would be maybe one or two layers unaligned. Or they may have a gap in between. For some of you, when you've looked at the more masculine male yang form, physical form, you found that that one was more perfect and more whole and had the ability to be complete more so than the one that you had. And that angers you a lot. That angers you a lot. Because you feel like the form that you're in, the sex that you're born in, the gender construction you're in, doesn't get to have the control and the equilibrium that the other ones have. And that is something that is elusive, because we have, even though it's the Ace of Swords, it's a cloud there, it's very elusive. And so you don't even spend time looking up like female warriors and stuff like that. Like, there's a complete almost disregard for that. Like, you're too practical to believe in that. And so success for you with the Six of Wands. Yeah, like there is an extreme Two of Swords. An extreme sadness of being born in this form. Like, there's an extreme sadness and being born like this. That's the Justice card. Page of Wands. You feel like, and the Seven of Swords, you feel like the yang form gets to live forever in a more vibrant way, and the yin aspect is always reserved of not being seen and not being recognized. And when it does express itself, it always seems to be some pain or tragedy or something, and you're kind of tired of that. So your associations with that more yin aspect has to deal with hidden things, things that get to be buried, things that get to be forgotten, but things that end up being dangerous and never fully lived out right. And so the potential to harm is even greater because it doesn't get recognized, it doesn't get realized, and it doesn't get acknowledged, it doesn't get validated. The Star and the King of Coins, and then Five of Wands. So the realization of oneself, the realization of this sadness that you have of being in this body, And maybe the heaviness of historical facts when it comes to how certain societies have been set up is something that you're working through. I think that Star card in the King of Coins is you're going to have to find, not necessarily find reasons to like your being, this physiology, but you will have to learn its merits because it does have its merits. There's a reason why it is here, and it fits in this world in some way, and you have to figure that out for your own mental sake, your own mental clarity, so that you can be free. Perhaps you don't realize how to best exalt your physical form because you never really wanted to get to know it because you always considered it to be weak. And so if you've always considered it to be weak, then you never really got to know its merits. You never really got to know its bonuses. You never really got to know its energy. You never really got to know it on an intimate level. It seems like the most basic physiological side of you was rejected in favor of outward forces that you think you could control, rather. And when you're bumping up against something that physiologically happens, that yes, you can control diet and stuff like that, but some aspect is sitting outside of that sphere, outside of what you can control. It's spiritual, and that void you may have more of an issue with. That void, and that having to go into that void, not understanding, it frightens you and it angers you that you have to do it, because the other side doesn't have to sit in that. They don't have to learn their lessons in that way. They don't have to exert their force in this way. They don't have to be this way. You have to be this way, and there's a box that you're stuck in, and that's kind of where it is. So there's a lot of merits that have to be learned, and a lot of appreciation for self that has to be learned. And I think particularly if you are in a premenopausal or menopausal state, or post chemo or something like that, post mastectomy kind of state, I think that you're really dealing with the physiological aspects that control has been taken away from a little bit, and you're trying to process that. That's what it seems like. But there's a lot of emotions buried about different cycles and about different ways of being that I think you haven't explored, and they do go back to childhood. They do go back to perhaps witnessing the freedom of the little boys versus the girls, or the limitations that seem to be placed on the girls in terms of what you could study or what you could do. And that shift when you get into puberty became a big question, because maybe up until then you considered yourself able to do those things, and then you got shifted into other things, and that shift into puberty is what gave you a lot of questions about the body and about the energetics. Even though you don't call it energetics, I don't think, of being considered female, a woman, a girl. It raised a lot of questions, and you as an adult have not been able to figure that out, and therefore you haven't been able to be comfortable in this body, because the question that you got, have not been answered beyond a physiological explanation, and there's something more spiritual, alchemical, cosmic that you're seeking, because you're trying to actualize self in this form. But you have to understand the self, and part of the self is just showing up through a menstruation, but it's not fully that. It's also energetics of the pieces of the menstruation, and the links between all four to have a completed menstrual cycle will reveal to you the links that you have with yourself, that you're either fully completing all four or having blockages so that you don't complete the next step. Thank you for watching this reading. I hope that you found it useful and insightful. I'll see you in the next one.